欢迎您收听爱家网教育生活节目。爱家网是一个服务华人家庭的新媒体，我们不定期地邀请各个领域的生活达人，分享他们的专业知识和生活经验，帮助华人家庭更好地融入美国社会。我们也十分欢迎在自己的领域中有所建树的朋友们自荐，成为爱家网下期节目的嘉宾。欢迎大家关注爱家网公众号北美爱家，获得下期节目信息。下面请您收听今天的主题节目。
大家好，欢迎大家收听爱家网教育生活节目的第58期。今天我们请来了两位声乐老师，为大家介绍学习声乐的科普知识。首先介绍一下今天的两位嘉宾。第一位是 Aleksandra Denda， 来自塞尔维亚，伯克利音乐学院硕士毕业，目前是一位活跃在纽约的歌唱家、声乐老师和词曲作者。他所参与和声的一张佛拉明戈专辑还曾经获得拉丁格莱美奖的提名。另外一位嘉宾是 Daniele Odasso， 是一位来自意大利的小伙子，同样是伯克利音乐学院硕士毕业，目前也是活跃在纽约和意大利的歌手、声乐老师和词曲作者。学习声乐和学习一门乐器显然是很不一样的，但是彼此又有着不少相似之处。孩子是不是适合学习声乐？学习的过程中又有什么需要注意的地方呢？我们就来听听这两位专业声乐老师讲述他们的成长道路以及他们在教学上的体验。Welcome to the show. Can you tell us about your story, how you got into music?
Hi, my name is Aleksandra. I am a vocalist and a songwriter, and recently I graduated from Berklee College of Music in Boston, and I've been performing a wide range of genres from traditional Serbian music to jazz to neo-soul to fusion to different types of world music, and I've been living and performing in New York for the last 5 years, as well as teaching.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And Daniel?
Hello, my name is Daniele. I'm from Italy. I'm also a singer-songwriter, and I graduated from Berklee College of Music the same time as Aleksandra. I grew up with pop and R&B, but I also love gospel, and I have a lot of respect for jazz music. In the past 7 years, I became very interested in a vocal method called functional method, or physiology applied. That has changed my entire perspective about singing. I've been performing in New York for the last couple of years, and I have released my first album 2 years ago as well. And I've been teaching and performing both in New York and in Italy, where I'm from.
How you got into music, why you chose music?
I definitely have to thank my parents. I remember my earliest memories around 2 years old, listening to the Beatles and Tina Turner, Aretha Franklin, mostly soul music and pop and rock and roll. And when I was 5 years old, I started taking some piano lessons in my elementary school, and my piano teacher actually encouraged me to sing. And my brother also is a professional musician, is a guitarist, and we grew up just loving music, different genres. But definitely the dream became more concrete after I graduated from high school. Mm-hmm. And I started dreaming about coming to the United States, and it's been quite a journey, and it's not as easy to just succeed in the genres that I like back home. Mm-hmm. So it was really meaningful and just a dream come true to move to Boston in the first place. And but definitely my childhood memories are the treasure that I hold on dear to my heart because of my parents' just gift and freedom.
My first experience with music, and this is obviously something that my parents and grandparents told me because I have no recollection of how things were when I was 2 years old, but my grandmother used to listen to a lot of opera, and she really loved Carmen.
Wow.
So she would play it on her VHS, and I would just stay glued to the TV for 2 hours. I don't even know how long that opera was, but I was just fascinated. Whenever that opera would come, I would just be 100% focused on that. And then also and as I was a kid, I would easily repeat and very accurately repeat any melody that I would hear, like whether it was a jingle or like a song on a radio or something. And I didn't even speak English or even my native language properly, but I would just like make up my own gibberish words that resembled the ones from the song, and I would just like go with it. So there was this like natural draw to music, and my parents recognized that from early age. So when I was in kindergarten, I started playing the accordion. That was my first like formal introduction, like introduction to formal education.
Okay.
But accordion was so heavy.
It is.
It was so heavy, just physically it was heavy. Not hard to play, but like physically heavy. And I remember like I would practice and I would cry out of like physical pain because I would have to stretch it out.
Yeah.
And back in the day in my country, there were not like the small accordions that would really fit my size. So I would kind of had a bigger accordion than the one that I should have had.
Got it.
And since accordion had keys, I kind of switched to piano because I still wanted to pursue playing an instrument, but accordion was too heavy, so I switched to piano. And I knew I always wanted to sing, and then piano was kind of a nice step to that because my dream was to like accompany myself on a piano. So it was like, okay, let me do piano, and then eventually I'm going to do voice, because back home, like formal education for voice only starts when you enter high school.
Oh, wow.
That's when you, because in formal education, that's where they consider you to have formed your vocal folds and that you're physically ready to actually work on vocal technique.
I see.
And then when high school came, I actually switched to voice, and that was jazz singing because I didn't really like opera, the sound of opera singing, even though like Carmen was like my first fascination with music. But I found like back in the day, I found opera singers too much alike. Like I felt like they were lacking authenticity in my ears. That's how it was. So, and I really like more contemporary styles. I remember this vocal group, and this was when I was in elementary school. Like we would go to there was this vocal competition that was really prominent back home. It's called the Golden Mermaid, or like the golden voice of a mermaid.
Nice.
And they had different categories, and I was obsessed with this vocal group from the States called En Vogue. So it was like the 90s R&B, but they had all these vocal harmonies that really fascinated me.
Yes.
So I managed to like figure out what harmonies were, teach them to my peers. So we did like a trio. And I remember, like, it didn't fit any of the categories, but we did it so well that I persuaded my teacher to let us go and compete. And
Really?
I remember, like, at the end of the competition, the judges came to us and were like, "You're really fantastic, but, like, we couldn't let you go further in the competition because you don't fit the category. But, like, we really wish we would have, like, let you continue competing." Speaking of harmonies, I really like playing, you know, back in the tape days, you would have those tape recorders that had like two of them. So what I would do, like this was like before the loop machines or the loop stations. So I would record myself on one of them, then turn on the second one, record a harmony over that, and then had like a two-part harmony, and then record on the first one, like to stack up the harmonies. And this was when I was like 10, 11 years old. I had a lot of fun just doing that.
You figure everything out yourself. Nobody teach you to do this.
My elementary school, we also had like just regular music education, and there was one teacher who would always prepare us for these kind of competitions or like school shows, and she was a really amazing mentor to me, one of the first ones. And her approach was just kind of to tweak me and guide me. She let me like figure out or like pick things on my own and then just kind of upgrade wherever I was. But she gave me a lot of freedom of doing things my own way, and I really appreciated her for that. Yeah.
So strong interest in early childhood plus a great teacher known how to guide you.
Yes.
I think that's great to get you on the track of music. So is there a particular reason you like vocal versus learning an instrument?
For me personally, there's been just this need to sing and this really strong connection to the voice. And just, I don't know, it came so naturally, and it was very easy for me from a very early age to remember the melodies, to sing them accurately, and most importantly, to express myself. I felt like I was most expressing myself through my voice. And for people who have that affinity, I think since that's already the instrument is already inside your body, that bridge between you feeling the music and you expressing exactly what you're feeling musically when you're young, I think comes easier with voice than with other instruments.
Yes.
Because with other instruments, there's this whole area of like meeting your instrument, right? Getting to know your instrument, getting your technique there.
Yeah.
And so you can feel, first of all, confident that you know what you're doing, and then the next step is, okay, I'm now expressing myself.
Yeah.
But because we're constantly using our voice to speak, we're already like, there's like this very immediate connection to our emotions and our voice.
Yes.
Because we're constantly expressing our emotions and ourselves, our personality through the voice. So I feel in that sense, and especially starting off, I feel voice has that advantage of more easily expressing yourself, and that's a very exhilarating feeling to express yourself through music. And for instruments, sometimes it takes, most often takes more time to get to that place.
Yes, I absolutely totally agree that everybody, I guess, is equipped with that instrument in your already, right? And using a separate, a detached instrument to express that, it takes years of training and exercise and practice. It's kind of very hard, but it's very natural that most people like to sing. And if somebody speaks beautifully, it's like hearing him or her singing.
Yeah, there's already some kind of atmosphere in it when someone speaks beautifully. Yeah, that's true. And for me, I'm comparing this to a piano, which is a very specific instrument. I recently tried to play saxophone a couple of years ago, and that's for me, that was like a very interesting connection, because again, the same way with singing, you're very much, everything comes from the breath. So for woodwind instrument or brass instrument, where air is essential and breath is essential, there's this, I feel like, even a more like bodily connection to the instrument compared to piano for me.
Yes, you're physically connected.
Yeah. Like you're connected through your breath, and it's a different connection than just with your hands. I mean, your whole body, of course, participates in you creating music on a piano, but like there's lack of breath connection. And I felt with woodwind, it was it reminded me a little bit of singing.
Yeah. So why would somebody get vocal training?
So what's specific about voice compared to other instruments is it's within you. It changes every day. Like, with your talking, you sleep less or you eat differently and you feel your voice is different just in order to talk. So imagine how it is in order to sing. So there's this elusiveness about the voice as an instrument itself. The other thing is you cannot feel it. You have no sensitive nerves on your vocal folds itself. So you cannot really feel where your vocal folds are, but you're constantly using them. And you cannot really see them. It's not like an instrument that like you touch it, you pluck it, you blow in it, and you know what's happening. You're physically there, and you know exactly where you're going with it, and what area you're touching. So I feel it's a very abstract instrument, and getting to know your voice is really the greatest gift of taking the voice lessons, because it's an incredibly versatile instrument, but you really need to dig in, and you need to be very free and very experimental and ready to be goofy and to do weird things, to try out new things, to really explore what it is. And it's the instrument that's ever changing, because it goes with you. So it's responsive to your physical state of being as well as your emotional, spiritual state of being. It evolves with you. So the more you are connected with it, the more you can catch up.
So in other words, it does take training for you to can control it.
It's that fine line between controlling and letting go. And especially these moments that make us, when we listen to someone, that's that golden moment of you're controlling it, but you're letting go at the same time. That like very, very fine line in between those two. And for me, like taking voice lessons and having formal education is, first of all, knowing your instrument to the core so that you can use it 100% and know how to treat it. Yeah. How to treat it well. I think that's actually most important thing, because you only have one voice. Yeah. You know, if your guitar breaks, you're gonna buy a new one.
Right.
You cannot buy a new set of vocal folds. And in today's contemporary music culture, a lot of kids are singing a lot of contemporary repertoire, like a lot of pop music. A lot of that is very high in the range, that it's not suitable for every singer to be there. And our immediate response is to push up there and really not to sing it healthy. So I think that's the other part of knowing your voice means knowing what you can do, where you can do, and what kind of repertoire, and do it and make healthy choices so that you can sing for a very long time.
Yes, thank you
Longevity,
for explaining that.
yeah.
That's don't destroy yourself, right? That
Yes.
know your boundary.
Exactly.
Know exactly what your voice is suitable for, and then you can enjoy it for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about pitch and singing. What's the relationship between pitching and the singing, or with the vocal training?
I mean, for sure, singing on pitch is one of the boxes you need to tick.
It's a must, right?
But it's a must. But if I was to pick like a one moment, I'm not like saying someone's singing completely off pitch, but if I was to pick someone who's singing everything correctly, but maybe without expression or without a nice tone, versus someone who maybe made a little bit of mistakes pitch-wise, but is very expressive and has a beautiful tone, I would go with that.
Got it. Okay.
I would go with that rather than like complete cleanliness.
Got it.
Of course, the ideal is to, of course, be on pitch all the time and also have quality of sound, expression, and high level of musicianship.
Yeah. The expression bring life to the voice.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes these things go against each other, like we try to express ourselves and then we override it, and then something suffers, our tone or our pitch, or you know, sometimes that happens, but as I said, ideally all of these things would line up.
Since we talk about pitch and singing in tune, is that something we can actually train, or is that something you're born with?
I've seen kids that are like from very young age that have amazing pitch abilities.
Okay.
They do it naturally. It's a no-brainer. Then I've seen kids who have struggled but made amazing progress. Then I've seen kids, like I remember I had a peer when we were like very young, like first grade of elementary school, and he was a violin player. So he couldn't sing at all. Like his ability to control pitch was off. Like he couldn't sing 3 notes in a right pitch. But then we would do music dictation, and usually how the music dictation goes, the teacher first plays the whole thing that's 8 or 16 bars long, and then they play 2-bar sections for you to hear the shorter phrases and write them down. He would write 50% out of the first hearing. Accurately. So for me that was fascinating, because he had no connection of like the inner ear and voice ability to channel his great hearing, but then he would be able to completely write down what's happening and really hear the pitches. So sometimes there's this disconnect of like what you hear and what you can do with your voice.
Yeah, it's about that control of your voice,
Yeah,
right?
about that control and that connection. So I've seen that, and then I've seen kids who come and are kind of wobbly in terms of pitch, and then over time doing different kind of vocalese or ear training exercises, they start getting much better and better. And for a lot of kids, I've seen them like the nerves get most of them, and it's usually during recitals. And in class, they're great. Their pitch is completely there, and then at the recital, everything is like half step up or half step down. But I think a lot of it is also, as I mentioned, you're so connected to your body and to your emotions when you're singing that sometimes that's great and it helps you deliver, but sometimes it just makes you crash and burn. But then you learn.
Yes.
So it's a process.
I've also seen some friends who can play piano or some instrument really, really well. But when we go to karaoke, I realized I actually couldn't sing off tune all the time. That's something I realized. It looks like there's some disconnection that you may play an instrument really well, you can hear it,
and you can hear it and have a high level.
But when you control your voice to beyond that tone, it's hard for them. And one of the things that, since we talk about pitches, I want to say one more thing is a lot of Asian kids, they're considered shy. What's the most common issue they're facing? And
for shy kids, I feel like a lot of times it's volume, not pitch. And in my experience, a lot of Asian kids have really good hearing. And then a couple of years ago, because I have friends from all over the world, and I was talking to some friends who are Chinese, and they told me that the Chinese language is very pitch oriented in terms of, like, you say the same word in a different pitch, it means a different thing.
Yes.
So I feel the nature of the language is that way, that you are fine-tuned to, like, these pitch nuances.
So Chinese actually has an advantage
in
singing.
Yeah, I think it's a very,
great.
I feel like it's a very habitual thing because of the nature of the language. And speaking of singing, digressing a little bit, but kind of along the same lines, the language that you speak really, or that you're speaking really determines, like, your sound, where your natural impostation is. So for me, like, I'm from Serbia, we have very open vowels. So for me, I'm gonna be, like, more open vowel, and maybe sometimes even there's a lot of, like, ch, these kind of things. So my natural thing is to be, like, more open and frontal because of my language. And then that's something I need to be aware of if I'm singing in a different language, what I need to do to go away from my habit. Then for Americans, a lot of it is in it's the nasal cavity. It's because of the language. A lot of it is there. So it's also an interesting thing. But yeah, to go back to this, so I feel like pitch-wise, whoever's speaking Chinese has an advantage.
That's great to hear.
Just in the nature of things, and based on some of my experience. But I feel like shyness often can affect the volume. And that's something that takes time to just relax and let go. And I remember I had this boy who was so shy in the first 5 classes, I could barely hear him. And then slowly he started trusting me, he started trusting himself, and then this huge voice came out. And I'm like, wow, like, bigger voice than when he speaks. Like, and it's such he's not, like, pushing for it. It's a natural, very natural way, and that I think came from trusting himself and building confidence and really enjoying music. When all of these things and training, all of these things came together. And I feel for young kids, like, most of it is that, building confidence and having this feedback. And that's what it was in my elementary years. As I said, I had a lot of freedom. I was picking the repertoire, I was doing this, I was doing that, and I was just getting a lot of feedback and confidence building through my teacher, someone of authority telling me, yes, it's this way. No, hold on, let's tweak it a little bit. So I feel that's a very important thing, and that's something that stays with you. So just confidence and love for music, and just the idea, or, like, the value that you're expressing yourself through music, that it's not just something you need to really play correctly, otherwise the world will collapse. I feel these are very important pillars for, like, continuing your path as a musician.
You touch base on a very important part about confidence.
Because I was a chubby kid, so I was, like, often teased for my chubbiness, and I felt like my ability to sing and to do music was, like, my superpower. Because a lot of my peers who couldn't do it really admired me for it.
I see.
So for me, I felt like that was my secret sauce.
Yeah, that's great.
So I feel just having that confidence that for kids, that you know that you're good at something. It doesn't have to be music. In my case, it was music. Somebody else's case, it can be that they paint well, or they're really good at basketball. But, like, having something that you really enjoy, that you're good at, I feel it goes a long way later on in life. Yeah.
Absolutely. And comparing to other skills that you learn to boost up your confidence, I think vocal has a very special place for that, because interconnected with you, and once you can sing well, even when you talk, you can control your breathing and your volume much better. Right?
And control the room in terms of performance skills. Actually, like one of the top, I think, 3 worst fears for people are like public speaking.
Yes.
So I feel like having these kind of either playing a solo instrument or especially singing because you're using your voice, I feel you're getting ready for these kind of experiences later on. If you're going to be presenting at a meeting or you're going to be some kind of a public speaker, I feel you're already building that skill set. And I remember like we were this huge wedding and I was one of the people who was supposed to give a speech. And for me it was like I wasn't even thinking about it.
Right.
I just I knew what I wanted to say, and then I was like, okay, when the time comes, I'm just going to speak up.
Right.
And I remember this girl who is not in any kind of performing arts. She was sweating, and I was like, wow, like, it's your friend, it's the wedding, like, why are you so strong? She's can't speak in public, cannot speak in front of people. It was like such a stressful situation for her. And for you, when you just get used to sharing yourself, speaking in public is not really a big of a deal, or just in front of a group of people. So I feel that's also a nice skill to have later on in life.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's great takeaway is for parents to consider is having vocal training help your kids a lot, goes a long way with their confidence building. Can you explain to us the different types of vocal ranges, or what is the normal, for the regular people, what's a normal vocal range?
We have like 3 types of male voices, bass, baritone, tenor. So this was from the lowest to the highest one.
Okay.
And then female voices, we had alto, mezzo-soprano, soprano. And then within that, there are a lot of variables. You have like coloratura, sopranos, or you have contralto, that goes even deeper than alto. So just like variety of things. But I feel this range for boys, it definitely happens once they go through voice change in puberty, as well as for girls. Rarely someone's going to be a natural alto when they're really young.
So what exactly we're actually training for when we have children to take vocal lessons?
Ear training is one of them, intonation,
training,
what Daniele mentioned. Then how quick they are at picking up melodies or recognizing the differences in melodies. Expression, working on grooves, rhythm, the feeling of a song, of different kinds of genres or like different kinds of feels. And I feel sometimes that can be a tricky thing. Diction, pronunciation, so many things that are part of music, and delivering a song that's not necessarily okay, or like working hardcore on your vocal technique, but there are a lot of like little things that are safe and good to do with kids before they really go on like more thorough vocal technique training.
Thanks for explaining that. So before their voice mature, all those things can be trained already. And what are the things we should avoid having children to do during this time?
Just going beyond their range.
Okay, got it.
I feel, and the moment you feel that they're pushing, to just help them refrain from that, and realize that that's, even though they can do it, it's not a healthy thing to do, because a lot of kids have access to those notes, but they're not accessing them the correct way.
Yeah, that's dangerous, right?
Yeah, that's dangerous, and just voice. And also maybe like not encouraging breathy sounds in kids, I feel.
Okay.
Like going for more coordinated onsets and clear sounds. Just kind of making a healthy foundation for whatever is coming up next.
Cool.
I agree with Aleksandra. I also, again, have my clearest memories of music being in my life as a child, but the differentiation between instrumental training and vocal training, I think, are very different. But as a child, even when I started taking piano lessons, that unfortunately didn't become like my path. I don't think I was made to play the piano as much as my brother. But I think with instruments, like there is the possibility to nurture an idea of musicianship and musicality, and definitely like I tribute still my piano teacher just for inspiring that just richness of interest for music. But for voice, like definitely like male and female voices, they are very similar. They live in this like in one main register for like most of the childhood years. The thing that I've noticed the most is that talent shows have started to include children like a lot more like in the last few years.
Yeah.
And I think that is what is dangerous, because the children are asked to perform music that is written for adults, both vocally and lyrically,
Yes.
and there is this like expectation of delivery of something that is not adapted to the age of a child. I believe it's very important, especially with male voices around the age of puberty, like usually between like 12 up to 15 years old. Actually, sometimes there is this adaptation that is happening, and literally there is this cartilage, the thyroid cartilage, that becomes like heavier and
Right.
creates a weight. And many male singers, like even pop stars that are famous nowadays, when before the change of their voices, they were asked to sing and deliver those high notes, and then when our body naturally changes, there is still that pressure to preserve the pristine quality of childhood. So I think it's a very important like responsibility to just nurture the natural adaptation of what happens in our body. And so definitely like guiding a child in terms of their music sensitivity, I think is the most important thing.
So let's talk about what is appropriate age for kids to start taking vocal lessons. What are your thoughts? We start with Aleksandra.
I had kids as young as 4 years old who, and what Daniela mentioned, like there's, in kids there's this natural and spontaneous urge to sing. So if
Like
they,
when you were 2 years old, when
when I
see
was
Carmen,
little,
right?
yeah. So it's just this natural, like being drawn naturally to this. So and at that age they're able to speak articulate as properly in order to deliver a song, and then you start nurturing these basic things, the love of music, the expression through music, the memorization of the melodies, and some like soft building of musicianship. Also like feeling the rhythm and the groove and things like that. So for me, I've had like some 4-year-old, and what Daniela mentioned, like they're free of judgment, they're usually free of fear at that age, and it's just, and they're open to experimentation, and they're open to like trying silly things just in order to like get to know their instrument. So it's fun. It's fun
great
to work with even like
That's great
kids
tip
that
that at that age is actually could be easier than when you grow older. You become more shy.
You become more self-aware.
Right.
And that sometimes that can be,
Cool.
You have to go through this journey,
Could be a
I feel
disadvantage,
like, of letting go more as you get older, for sure. It's funny how we humans work.
Yeah. Danielle, what's your thought?
Yeah, definitely. I never had like young students as Aleksandra, but if the voice lesson is a music lesson, definitely I would be happy to work with young like kids. But maybe like 8 years old, I notice is 8, 9 years old is the moment where there is some level of consciousness and just that allow the child to enjoy, participate into the lesson, and just understand what is the process. Because just doing a lesson for the purpose of entertaining the child, I don't know what is like sometimes I notice that parents want so much, again, their children to study and grow as musicians, but it's important for me to identify what is the core desire in the child to nurture this passion, because it carries a lot of, again, responsibilities. But definitely, yes, I've been so inspired and moved by the freedom, the talent, and the humility of kids. They don't have an ego, they have a passion, they have just a desire to embrace music in its purest form. My youngest students, they are songwriters. They just released an EP last week at 12 years old. But they are, yes,
Wow.
12, 13.
Wow, that's amazing.
So what will work out best for the children? Is it going to be group lesson, choir, or one-on-one lesson? What are your thoughts?
I feel it's a vast question, and we have to be more specific in terms of age groups. Maybe group lessons for younger kids where you're more working on repertoire, memorizing the words and songs, and then just feeling this joy of creating music together. But then one-on-one later on, Daniele mentioned like 7, 8, if they really want to work on it more in a more focused way, then it would be one-on-one.
Cool.
And then later on, I feel like choir music, if you're going to go more into more serious repertoire, just learning and hearing harmonies, like singing in choirs, is the best place to do so.
Okay.
Yeah. And intonation-wise, sight reading, if you're doing more serious repertoire, it's incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Danielle, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I had like lessons with like small groups where I think in small groups there is a possibility of interacting and listening respectfully and attentively to the other kids. And I would have loved to have like a choir experience as a child. I had it as an adult, and I definitely like encourage like kids to embrace that. I have some just examples of like bigger groups of students back home in Italy, where some of my friends, colleagues, vocal teachers, they had the opportunity to work with like extended group of kids. But from a pedagogical point of view, I would feel more comfortable with smaller groups, and then one-on-one probably like from 8, 9 years old onwards.
Got it.
And yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. So what, in terms of the study material, is there any particular material you guys follow or recommend? What are your thoughts?
For kids, I like Musician Institutes. They have like a nice book on sight reading that's very, like the curriculum is really nicely organized. So it goes from more basic stuff, and the melodic and the rhythmic thing kind of evolve together with the same pace, which I really like. And then more for like technical things, I like the Berkeley Press, like contemporary singer exercises and books. For rhythm stuff, I really like Bob Stoloff's scat method, even though like if you're not a jazz singer, there's so many great rhythmical exercises there. And yeah, so I feel like those 4 or 5 books are something that are my go-tos. And then for like depending on something more specific, I would go to other resources.
What about Danielle?
I use like a couple of like just vocal books of traditional technique, but I'm still talking about vocal technique. If you're talking about music, I would definitely like follow Aleksandra's direction.
So during a typical vocal lesson, can you give us a walkthrough?
So we would do some warm-ups just to get started. Maybe
what do you
start
do
from
for warm-up?
Couple of breathing exercises, so it's kind of step by step. First, just focusing on breath management. I mean, this is if it's a little bit like, I would say like teenage student and up. With kids, maybe just some silly or like more simple breathing exercise, like blowing into a balloon and things like that, where they are connecting with the breath. And then going more into lip thrills. So basically now you have vibration, but without actually having a tone. So it will kind of resemble if you just took the mouthpiece of a trumpet and blew in it, right? It has that buzz, but it doesn't really have a tone of a trumpet because it's lacking the rest of the instrument. So that's basically like a comparison to what you're just using a part of your instrument for that one. And then going more into some kind of vocalese, like arpeggios or the complete scales or parts of scales. And then depending on what kind of repertoire we're working on, we would work on certain exercises that are going to help reach certain vocal goals for that particular song or repertoire.
I see.
Whether it's a resonance thing or a certain sound, or like I would sometimes, if there's certain runs or melismas in the song, I would take that and like turn it into exercise and then go over that. So that will be like one part of the lesson. Then if we're doing sight reading and rhythm reading, we would do that part, and then we would go to more repertoire focused.
Would you have homework after the class?
I would like to assume my students practice.
Okay, you tell them what to practice at home.
Yes,
okay.
exactly. And a lot of these things, and just, doing at least some kind of warm-ups on a daily basis, whether it's just lip thrills when you're, I don't know, in the shower. I would like to think that they're doing something like that.
Most people sing in the shower, right?
Yeah. So some kind of warm-ups, and then working on specifics in the repertoire that we went through in the class.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Thanks. Danielle, any?
Again, I follow some of Aleksandra's principles, but again, the functional method approach works with the attention to the parameters of sound. So for me, the warm-up is asking the student which part of the voice is available the most in that moment, like if it's a lower, higher part of the range. And then I just play half-step wise, one note at a time, and I'm asked to sing two vowels, like a for the lower register and u for the higher register. And then I ask questions about these parameters of sound, which are vibrato, intonation, the vowel, and the formants, which seems a very specific concept, but is the formants are those frequencies that contribute to the creation of a sensation of a buzz. So the richness of the voice comes mostly from the existence of the formants. And some kids, again, they are so musically inclined and talented that they are content in finding the warmth and the fullness of their voice, even in the simplicity of what I call visiting the journey of their voice. I can walk through like 2 octaves range, just one note at a time, and each note becomes its own world.
There's a question I have is about playing instrument and taking vocal lessons. I guess some of the parents would wonder, do they need to learn an instrument first before they move on to the vocal lesson? What are your thoughts?
So, I am a kid in this sense because I don't play the piano like maybe probably every other vocal teacher in America, in the world. I use instrumental tracks, which is the part of my preparation that makes me feel like more insecure, but I encourage to do both. I see that, again, my students, they play the piano, they play the guitar, and simultaneously having instrumental lessons, not in the same moment, but like in the same time of their lives, studying an instrument and studying their voice, I think can be very, can complement, the two parts can complement each other. And but again, I think for this question, Aleksandra is the best example of including both and being an exceptional musician. And yeah.
Aleksandra, what do you think?
I mean, I agree with Daniele of having an instrument that it complements the voice, especially because we talked about before that voice is an invisible instrument. So, and then when you have the visible instrument, it definitely makes certain concepts more concrete in a way, especially maybe like pitches or relations, harmonic things, concepts later on if you want to go to a higher level of studying. So that I know pianos helped me understand harmony or music theory completely in a different way than when you're singing. But then again, I know some singers who don't play and who have developed their own ways of understanding harmony through singing. That just blows my mind, like how their musicianship works in that way. So I don't think I really think it's like a individual thing.
Okay.
It can complement, or you can like develop your own thing just with one instrument.
Okay, so necessarily you have to learn an instrument. They could start taking vocal lessons without jumping to an instrument first.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
yes, definitely.
Thank you. What about reading music? Is that a must for learning vocal lessons, taking vocal lessons?
Well, for voice, unlike other instruments, you can be incredible and not know how to read music. I feel it really depends on like what you're interested in doing. If you are, and even in certain cultural traditions, like Indian music is one of the most intricate, Indian classical music, one of the most intricate music and musical forms in the world.
Oh.
And they're not, everything is done by ear.
Wow.
So their musicianship, because of that, because it's so intricate in a melodic way in terms of timbre and inflections as well as rhythm, like their musicianship is in an incredible level. And for us, like being at Berklee, it was interesting just seeing how people from different parts of the world come from different musical and music education backgrounds, and how that affects the way they learn. So like, and I have a lot of friends who've just been classically trained throughout, and then they ventured into more contemporary styles, and their ability to go off script in terms of like improvising or just doing something that's not written is a moment of like shock for a lot of them, of like, what are you asking? It's a complete area of non-comfort. And then for other people who are like more ear trained or like relying more on what they hear rather than what they see, the moment you give them something that's very much written out, even in a contemporary setting, if you want a certain thing to be played, for them that's a moment of like block. And I feel you should get both, like best of the both worlds, and that's really going to make you an incredible musician.
Yeah.
So not to be a slave to what's written, to be open to interpretation and to improvisation and to genres or like a part of repertoire that nurtures that, but also like knowing your basics. Yep.
Cool. Thanks. I think it's well said. Danielle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's, I feel the same, and I think it's very important to be able to read also for the purpose of, if you decide to write music, like reading and writing, like there are like tools that are, they are both necessary. And but I experienced the same thing. I didn't study to read music, like in the beginning, yes, like my first piano lessons. And then I followed my ear for many, many years. And when I went to Berklee, everything became more concrete. And I noticed that the more I was nurturing one aspect of musicianship, reading and writing and transcribing, the more my overall understanding and even enjoyment of music increased. So definitely, like, again, a collaboration between reading, writing, identifying what happens in music is very important.
Cool. Thanks. So let's talk about, as a beginner who started taking vocal lessons, how much practice they have to put in every day. I know we interviewed Miss Jo before, and about piano, violin, they all give about similar answer about got to practice every day, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So in terms of vocal, is there anything different?
I feel it depends on the age and the ability of kids, or like how independent they are in order to execute it. But I would say, like, if we're talking about like the golden age that we mentioned, like 8, 9, I would say it would be great if they could practice like 30 to 40 minutes a day, or at least 30 minutes.
Okay, one thing that struck me was vocal is something that you carry with you all the time, right? I mean, does that count if you're practicing shower?
Yeah, I feel like every time you use your voice with an intention, it does count. And it's interesting because you take your voice in all these different places. So I feel like Daniele can even talk more about that, how you hear your voice then in these different rooms affects then what you do with it, in which I feel it's a very cool thing, especially for a kid, because you're experiencing your voice in these different settings and you're discovering all the different ways that your voice can sound depending on where you are. So it's definitely something that should be encouraged.
Okay, that's interesting. Danielle, what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, as well, absolutely. Like 30, 45 minutes, but we use our voices consistently, like from when we wake up to talking to have like joking, laughing.
Right.
Like there are a lot of like physiological reflexes that involve the vocal cords, and but I think in terms of practice, yeah, probably 30, 45 minutes.
At this stage, for the beginners, what are the typical role of the parents?
Managing expectations in terms of repertoire, how fast they're going to get there, what's the final product, that it's realistic in terms of their performance of that. I've noticed a lot of parents pushing their kids to be louder, and then that creates this kind of anxiety in the kid, and then they're just going for the volume and usually not in the healthiest ways.
I see.
So just kind of for them to be respectful of the process.
Okay.
Of the kids, and kind of knowing to set realistic expectations in every sense. I know, like, sometimes I have parents who have like their 5-year-olds and they want them to write songs already and have like a finished product, or like things like that, or they just expect them to advance faster, but it's a lot for their age. So just kind of always communicating about that, and parents like communicating their expectations, and then asking for a feedback from a teacher of like, okay, is this expectation
realistic, right?
Yeah, within the reality, or are we breaking a ceiling? Yeah, I feel that's very important.
Thank you.
For the kids' well-being as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
Danielle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't want to say something paradoxical, but I think it's important for the parents to follow how the children rest. Silence is very important, so staying hydrated, sleep, and not yelling is the most important thing, because we can train a voice as much as possible, but then if the kid gets exhausted by doing sports or screaming in the moment of fun, like, it's important to find a balance between practice, freedom, and then rest.
I understand there's also NISMA, there are this kind of test exams available for them to evaluate the level of vocal.
What I've done so far was NISMA. That's the only one that I'm aware of. I know for piano there's IBRSM, but I'm not sure. I think it's only a piano method. I'm not sure if there's one for the voice.
Okay, so how do they evaluate the vocal level?
So they have, each level has a different set of requirements. Usually it's some kind of sight reading.
I see.
And then a piece that's been like a specific piece that's relevant to that level.
Okay, so you have to sing a song basically.
Yes, but a particular song, usually in a particular key. I'm not sure if they're flexible about that. Usually in a particular key and in a particular arrangement.
I've seen some people, with the instrument, they kind of hide themselves behind the instrument. They could play very well because they don't have to speak, right? They don't have to look at the audience. But when you sing, it may be probably more difficult for a shy kid to do well. So is there any tips that you can offer the parents and students to overcome their shyness? Anything to add?
I had a couple of kids who double on an instrument, usually guitar or ukulele.
Okay.
And then I would ask them when they have to perform, like at a recital, whether they want me to accompany them, or like they want a backing track, or they want to accompany themselves. And I've noticed that a lot of times that helps if they are accompanying themselves. So they're, in a way, it's like a lot of responsibility. But then they have this moment of like, I feel safe with my instrument, as you mentioned, like hiding, or I don't know, I feel just maybe like more safe. And then the singing is not the only thing that they're doing. So in a way, like, it provides a certain relief. So that's been definitely a way. And I just feel, for me, like, I've been someone who, I wasn't like the shyest kid, but definitely a kid who had a lot of like stage anxiety, and who would never give 100%. Like, I would always give like 85%, and I would feel very frustrated about it. Of like knowing that you're not, like at the moment of execution, you're not going
full speed.
Yeah, like to the very end of your abilities.
It's not like you don't want it, but for some reason you couldn't deliver.
You feel blocked.
Okay.
And like I would have, like my body would shake. I remember like on my piano exams, I would always bring like a huge pack of tissues because I would like wipe the piano and then play, and then I couldn't play the next piece without wiping the piano again because it was completely wet. I would just sweat so much. So for me, just building the confidence and just doing it so many times that it becomes second nature thing, that it's not a big deal. And I remember like a friend of mine who was completely cool every time when she was supposed to perform, even like that was at the age of 10 I think. And then I was seeking advice from her. She's like, do you know what I do? And I'm like, what do you do? Like, I just imagine everybody in the audience like sitting on a toilet. And like then I just go and it's cool. So this thing is totally ingrained in my memory, and it was like one of the best
advice, right?
tips from a 10-year-old. But that was such a cool thing. So just I feel like this kind of relationship of like it's not a big deal and you should be enjoying it. I feel like these are two very important things, because I feel like my perfectionism as a kid and today is also like it's a good thing. It's constantly pushing you to be better, but sometimes it can just like put you down and put this extra pressure on you that it's actually not productive. So just having certain lightness about the performance itself and what it means, I feel it also helps. But as I said, it's if you're naturally shy, it's a process of like trusting yourself, trusting your mentor, building the confidence, and positive experiences, as well as learning like resilience and learning how to deal with, okay, I didn't do my 100%. What have I learned from this experience? How can I make it better next time? So there are a lot of good skills that come from just overcoming all of these challenges.
Sure. Cool. Anything to add, Daniel?
No, I feel the same. I think it's important to reduce the stress of what performing means in the general understanding. And sometimes the lessons start from the kid. Like I encourage the kid to maybe, if there is a moment of shyness, I'm like, what have you sung recently? Like, what is the last song that you remember here? And usually, like, from that point, the lesson just starts with a completely different mindset and perspective and calm. And I also remember having, like, incredible anxiety in the moment of the concerts as a child. Also because for me, singing is like talking to God. So it's a very powerful spiritual experience. And emotionally, sometimes I feel like I want to express so much, but I also feel humbled by the magic of music, and I want to encourage the kids to always remember that they are managing a gift. So it's something that needs to be protected, and the purpose of music also is, for me, is communication. It's not showing a great voice. It's another thing. And so from that point, the lessons become very playful and fun. Like I've never laughed as much as recently just with my younger students. But again, there are also some students who are shy as kids, but then their instinct to sing is so powerful that the shyness transforms into something else, which is expression. And so I encourage just to follow what is the core instinct that has brought the kid to the lesson in the first place.
Can you both, each of you, give your best advice for parents who like to have their children take vocal lessons, to have them to get interested in singing?
Listen to their kids in terms of what moves them, how much they're inspired to pursue, whether it's like learning voice or another instrument, and to support, to really just, I feel like, be very, very much there for them and just listening to what their needs and desires are and abilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Danielle?
Yeah, the same thing, like being gentle, asking and trying to understand also how each kid has their own like sensitivity and path in understanding what singing is. Most of the time I realize that singing is probably the first thing that a kid does, like to relate to music. So I have noticed that with instrumental lessons, like there is more pressure because it's usually like you don't study to play by ear, you study to read music. With singing, like it starts from a more natural, organic experience, and so listen to the kids while they're singing, what is the sentiment that inspires that action, and then encourage them to investigate and explore and search. But one thing that I've noticed since I was little, like I wanted to take voice lessons. I think the first time I was 12 years old, right, like a few months before my voice changed, and I was singing like a soprano, and for me it was normal at the time. And then I always remember that I didn't want to resolve the mystery. I want the mystery to still be in my life. Let me rephrase. When I decided to take voice lesson as an adult, I was 18 years old. I was so curious about the answers from the teacher, but I was like, don't tell me everything. I want to be moved to search. So if singing and the voice lessons become just a path of discovery, lifelong path. So, and also something that keeps the person young, because age, sometimes there are older people that I've worked with who still have preserved the purity and innocence of the child. So I think childhood as a concept should be just understood properly and to be respected in that core. That core is so important.
Cool. Very well said. The one last question I have is there any book, can you share a book or piece of music or movie or somebody who inspired you?
I remember when I was young, it was a movie, The Sound of Music.
Sound of Music.
There's
My favorite.
There's just there's so many beautiful songs there. Yes. That I remember that really, like, that was something I would always go back to when I was a kid. And it's so interesting to me because nowadays I would play some songs to, like, today's kids, and it's not easy to engage them and for them to find interesting something that's kind of outdated as that is. But they always react so well on music from that movie. From something else that's from decades ago, they would often find it uninteresting, but there's something in that music that really makes it special. So and I feel just the whole message of, like, all of these siblings singing together and just music getting them through the craziest and hardest time of their lives.
And how music help the family to overcome the challenges they face.
So it's just beautiful overall. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Danielle?
A variety of things, like Ravel as a young kid, Peter and the Wolf. I don't know how is it called in English. Is it Peter and the Wolf? And then a lot of Disney music absolutely changed my life. Alan Menken, the composer Alan Menken, who wrote for Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, and Aladdin, genius.
Watched a lot of American movies when you were young.
But that kind of like relationship between melodies, a character, and also the purpose of the voice. I remember again, Little Mermaid was like, the meaning of that movie was your voice is your heart. No one can take away that.
非常感谢 Aleksandra 和 Daniel 两位老师的精彩分享，希望今天的节目对各位家长朋友们有所启发。希望和两位老师学习声乐的家长们可以直接和他们任教的有成音乐工作室联络。微信上的朋友们也欢迎扫码加入有成音乐咨询群，咨询相关的课程。有成音乐工作室位于纽约大境，地址在北方大道11号2楼 Great Neck， 邮编是11021，咨询电话917-992-2272。谢谢大家收听和收看本次节目，我们下期节目再见。
希望您喜欢本期爱家网教育生活节目，欢迎您关注爱家网公众号北美爱家。爱家网官方网站在 happyhomekeeping.com。我们的每期节目都会通过爱家网官网、爱家网微信群、Facebook、 YouTube、iTunes Podcast， 还有喜马拉雅6个平台同时播出。欢迎您关注，并选择方便自己的平台收听。谢谢您的收听，我们下期节目再见。